difference between the network different changes?
Well,
I would say no.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if people ask that, and I'd say, like, honestly, like, NBC has always produced the show. They bought the show knowing what it was, and they never wanted us to do anything different. And so, and we didn't feel at Fox that there was any pressure to make it a Fox show. We just have always made the show we wanted to make, and we've continued to make the show we want to make. And so, some minor differences in terms of being able to bleep out curse words that we weren't allowed to do, but other than that, like, we've just continued to do our thing, and we've had, on both networks, remarkable support.
Have you seen any difference as of your?
No,
none. Well, I was wondering if, I feel like it's more character focused in the latest season, where you're following the story of a specific character through the duration of the episode. Am I wrong in that aspect?
If so, that's not intentional. I'm trying to think of an example.
The only thing I'd say we did a little more of this year, and that's, again, nothing to do with networks, just us trying to push ourselves, is we've done more episodes that sort of break our traditional form of, like, we do an A story and a B story, sometimes a C story. Every character gets a, and that's the pattern that we established, and it's a great pattern, but one thing that's hard about that is getting all 8 or 9 of our regulars, back when we still had Gina, like, a full story, and every character has something to do, every character has jokes, every character has some sort of emotional journey, and that's great, but it's also, you're really tight for time, and one thing we've started doing a little more of is doing stories where the entire episode is focused on one story, whether it's a whole case or an emotional story like Casecation or whatever.
But that's not a network narrative.
Yeah.
That was just a challenge, a way of doing interesting episodes.
Yeah, it just allows you to, dig into the stories a little in a little more depth, as you explained.
I feel like everyone else splurged on a tripod.
Yeah. My wife's got them. And then the staff.
Tripod, but not the camera.
No, she's got the camera. She took mine today because she left hers. She leaves things. She left it in the hotel room.
What's she doing with it?
She's off covering other panels and interviews.
Fair enough.
Your forearms getting tired.
Not bad. I'm used to it by now.
Okay.
Thank
It
you.
happens a lot.
It's been happening a lot today. Let's say this way.
Maybe it has a steadying kind of algorithm going on.
Yep. But yes.
It's about season 7.
Bigger, better, funnier, the best. I think what we can tease is that we're going to pick up where we left off with Captain Holt. We're going to really try to pay off the cliffhanger that we had. We're excited to explore more of the Jake-Amy dynamics. I think we're going to do a bunch of, we're going to bring back a lot of our favorites, who I think are also fan favorites. We're hoping to have a Pimento episode. We're hoping to have a Pontiac Bandit episode, obviously. We're hoping to have Mark Evan Jackson. And then we're also hoping to do a few episodes that break the form in the way that we did last season, because that's interesting for us and challenging.
Yeah, I think our challenge is always to do things that we have never done, that the audience hasn't seen from us, while also making sure it stays the same show.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing that in some ways we're kind of an old-fashioned show in that the answer to that question is more of the same. We're not trying to reinvent ourselves. We're just trying to have you ever seen Jiro Dreams of Sushi?
No.
Well, it's a great thing about a sushi chef, documentary about a sushi chef, and he talks about making the same piece of sushi over and over again and perfecting it each time. And I think that what we try to do is make the show we're making better every time we make an episode.
How challenging is it to make sure that you're spotlighting each of this talented ensemble?
Incredibly challenging.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how do you do it?
It destroys our souls.
No, it's really, honestly,
it's so
really
hard.
hard. And you're just like, we keep a big board and you try to like look at the pairings, and you're often like, stretches will go by, a whole season will go by, and we'll be like, we really like didn't take advantage of Joe, or we didn't take advantage of Terry, and not because of anything other than you're just like, it's just every single way the cast is so great.
Well, also the cast is now, they're all doing so well in their professional lives outside of the show, and so sometimes they have scheduling conflicts that mean they can only do a certain number of days, and we look at that as like the greatest relief of all time. It's like, oh, we can be a little bit, Terry's hosting AGT Champions blowout mega death, and he'll be in a smaller story, and it's like it's a little bit of a relief.
But it's just, it's a real like,
it's a challenge.
It's a great challenge to have, because we like writing for all of them. But it's one of the things that's, I'd say, been the most difficult about making the show, is balancing
working with each other.
Yeah.
I feel like you
you guys have done such a great. I feel like you guys have done such a great job of creating like such a diverse, rich cast of characters who cover so many bases that you don't see on TV, particularly in comedy. Whether it's their sexuality or just, I asked the earlier table about sort of the way you guys write masculinity. What makes you, or how do you approach, like, it just feels like so real, true to life, diverse, great, everything.
Well, part of the reason we chose...
Terrible question.
No. First of all, it started with a wonderful compliment, so already we love it.
Perfect.
It started, I think, with the pilot. We chose the NYPD because... And we chose Brooklyn because the NYPD is 50% diverse. So it felt like a very natural way in which to have a diverse workforce that didn't feel in any way forced. And then Brooklyn itself is so interesting in terms of how every neighborhood, how every block can be a completely different and fully fleshed out community. And I think that we just approach storytelling and character development from a perspective of loving the characters and trying to honor the characters. And I think as a result of that, it creates a robust, diverse cast. And then we also try not to make the elements of diversity the butt of the joke or the sort of mechanism of what it's a part of who you are. It's not a part of what makes you funny.
Yeah, I mean, I think an interesting thing that I always appreciated coming onto the pilot, coming out after the pilot, what Mike and Dan had done was it was a show that had intense diversity, but it was never like, it wasn't written into the script as being like, this is a diverse show. The show was a cop show. It didn't say that it wasn't an important part of the pilot that there were two Latina detectives. It wasn't an important part of the show that both the captain and the sergeant of the precinct were African American men. It was just like, you could have mixed the genders or, the races, everything except homosexuality, and it would have been the exact same, like, it would have been the same story, it would have been the same set of jokes. And I think that really is interesting, because I think it moves it away from any sort of, I don't know, like, any sort of like tokenism or something where you're like, we have one of each type, and it's like, and they're there to like, because it's like, isn't it funny to see these two people from different backgrounds interact? And it's like, that's never where it comes from. They're funny seeing them interact because they're two different personalities, and the background stuff just is like, there in the background is a fact of life. And I think that's always been what's been quietly revolutionary about the show, at least for a network television.
And then the other thing, sorry to double down on your excellent question.
Thank you. I just feel like I could have phrased that clearer.
Yeah, well, you can rewrite it after that. Fact.
Yeah, I'll make it sound better when I write it.
The only other thing is,
sure.
I think this was true from the pilot on, and then Luke really put a finger on it. Like in season 4, he was like, well, I think the thing about the show is that we always present masculinity and then undercut it. And I think that may just be a sensibility thing. I mean, from the very beginning of the pilot, Terry was the most egregiously masculine and strong man there was, but he was very timid and scared. Jake wants to be Bruce Willis, but it's Amy who takes down Ratko, the villain in the first one. And I think all along we've always presented this balloon and popped it, and it wasn't necessarily conscious until you pointed it out. I think it really is kind of a sensibility thing to a certain extent.
Yeah, I think, and I think it's also, I think it's an interesting challenge of making a show about police and the way police have always probably are in reality, and the way they've always been presented in TV and movies as a very like hyper masculine like environment, and it's like fun to like, I don't think we comedically undercut it. It's just like what's interesting and the thing that we can do that's new, because there's been a billion TV shows that show like, a world in which they're like more sensitive. I think it's just been interesting.
Well, I don't just mean the sensitivity.
Yeah.
I mean like Jake wants to do the Die Hard thing, and then it's Charles who gets to do it. Like we're always
gay man is in some ways the most classically masculine of all of our male characters. I mean, there's just a lot of interesting things, but also somebody comes in the cast. Terry himself looks like a superhero walking around.
But he's an incredibly sensitive artist.
Yeah,
so I mean, it's like
intensely genuine, nice, So.